Want to hear some real life survival stories? I'm reading them from Reddit today. So, this was asked on Reddit, hey, are there any real survival stories out there? And I'm going to read some of them just to give you guys some ideas on the reality of what survival and preparedness even mean. So, let's get into it. Hey everyone, Morgan here. So I'm going to be screenshotting this as I read it. I hope it's interesting enough, but I'm also going to make this as interesting as possible. But this person says, I probably have the most realistic but boring story there is. A couple winters ago, we got snowed in bad, like real bad. To top it off, a tree fell right into our power line. Us and several of our neighbors didn't have power for an entire week. We live in a rural area, but not far from everything. But even the plows decided not to come plow our main road. The ice was too thick and they didn't prepare ahead of time. We survived off of our small solar power phone chargers. We used up a lot of alcohol and all the propane cooking. We do have a kerosene heater, so we all pretty much stayed in one room to keep warm. We did have a stockpile of canned goods and dried meals, ramen, etc. It wasn't really life or death, but a good lesson in always being prepared. We make sure to keep stocked on everything now and purchased even more power banks. I've also downloaded a good collection of movies and shows to watch if it ever happens again to stave off boredom. This is a great lesson learned. This was just like a bad snowstorm where a tree fell onto a power line and knocked out their power. Now they have lessons learned, and now you can learn these lessons. Okay, not sure if my story qualifies as a survival situation, but it most definitely made me realize how fragile society is. When I was a kid, our region was hit with an ice storm. There were millions of left without power in the dead of January. Tens of thousands of armed forces personnel were deployed. I grew up in a suburban city, but my family was also owned a farm. My dad at the time was still working as a first responder, but also worked on the farm and sold firewood as a sideline. When most of our extended family was left without power, most flocked to my parents' place or to the farm. We had generators, a wood stove, and with shared camping gear, we housed over 50 people at one point: aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents, neighbors, volunteer, first responders. My dad and his colleagues were working around the clock. People were going nuts, breaking into stores, stealing food and gasoline. My uncles would drive out to the farm and bring back firewood to sell in the neighborhood. People were showing up at the parents' front door with their kids' sleigh asking to buy wood to heat their homes because the community shelters were full. Plus, people wanted to stay in their own homes from fear of them getting robbed if they left for a shelter. At this point, my dad was reporting that people were dying from hypothermia and told my mom to stop taking the money to give the wood out for free. Even then, we had people try to steal from us in our own backyard. We had to chain the generators under the back balcony. And I remember one of my uncles leaving his shotgun propped up next to the back door. My aunts went to our church almost every day to serve food to people, basically just rehydrated chicken broth and homemade biscuits. It was scary and exciting as a kid. I don't think I understood the scope of what was going on until much later, when I would pay attention to the stories told by my dad and uncles and aunts. We were mostly fine because we had resources and were numerous, but that wasn't the case for most people. I never went to bed at night wondering if someone was going to try to break into my home. I didn't go to the grocery store afraid that I might get jumped in the parking lot. And I didn't have to worry about how I was going to get my hands on food because I didn't have cash and ATM machines were out. This was a fascinating story, and ones that you might see in like apocalyptic novels and things. Oh, people, trying to steal things from you. But this is how crazy people get, and very fast. Really interesting story. My friend went anger hiking in winter in Utah, got lost for 3 days with just a coat, sandwich, dollar bill. I think she had a lighter. She couldn't get a fire started even on burning bits of the bill or her coat or the sandwich crust. She managed to hike around the backside of the mountain while wondering. Eventually, she heard search and rescue looking for her. She was so tired and worn out and unhealthy that she couldn't yell anymore. Luckily, she managed to get close enough that she could eventually make enough of a yell to be heard, and they found her. She managed to keep all of her toes and fingers. She didn't even have frostbite, but her whole body does have frost nip. Now she's very sensitive to the cold. She's much smarter about adventuring now. Many obvious lessons: go out prepared, let people know where you are going. She always says the thing that she wished she had the most was a whistle, because search and rescue almost missed her. I talk about whistles a lot, and what people don't understand is that whistles are not for like being stealthy. Whistles are for being heard, because like in this exact scenario, she didn't have a voice and they almost missed her unless she could let out that one scream. Whistles are an essential survival item, especially when you're going out into nature. You just don't know what's going to happen. And I've never heard of anger hiking before, but that's a new one to me. So don't go out hiking angry. That's another good lesson. Okay, here's a really good one. I dipped my feet into preparedness after the COVID mess. I started slowly putting away food and water for the family as well as some supplies, but treated bug out bags as unnecessary. I thought, I'm bugging in, so I don't need them. Today, I was out with my family when I noticed on social media there was a fire dangerously close to my neighborhood. We immediately ran home at the very least to get our dogs. 30 minutes later, we were being urged to evacuate. It took us an hour plus to get our stuff together, and even then, we were missing stuff. Thanks to the hard work of the amazing firefighters and brilliant pilots, I think only a couple homes were burned and we were safe. But I can't help but feel like I failed. Tonight, I start researching go bags for the family. I got wrapped up in the SHTF scenario and ignored the most likely events that can take place. Learn from my mistake. Really good lesson there. People always constantly tell me, no, I'm never going to bug out. I don't need bug out bags. Things can happen and quickly, and you may need stuff. He said it took him over an hour to get stuff together. That's crazy. If you can't leave in just like 10 minutes, just grab your stuff and go, or less. Sometimes I've seen stories of people having to leave in like a few minutes, okay? And they have to get out. Quick, grab your stuff and go. Okay, here's a good one. I lived in Los Cabos back in 2014 during Hurricane Odile. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. I'm very sorry. Los Cabos is located at the tip of the Baja California Peninsula. Underdeveloped and mostly barren, when the hurricane hit the city, it became an island. Law and order did not return to the city after a few days. It's your typical SHTF scenario. Within the first few hours after the storm, people were coming out of their houses still a little in shock around 5 in the morning. The first thing my neighborhood did was cleaning up and assessing the damage. The gravity of the situation fell upon everyone after 2 or 3 hours into the first day. There was no power, no water, and worst of all, no AC. People began looting stores within the first day. By the second day, it became mayhem, and my stores were being looted. How I survived was simple. My neighborhood was a gated community. Because of that, most of the neighbors knew each other to an extent and began to organize. People grabbed whatever weapons they could find in the wreckage and used them not so much for defense, but for intimidation. The strategy was to create a lot of noise and an intimidating presence to scare off looters and rioters. A night watch system was implemented with my father taking a shift. Women and children stayed inside the houses. I stayed inside with my mother and sister. During the day, men would go out of the house with whatever gas they had in their cars, scavenge and bargain for supplies for whatever money they had. Some semblance of order returned after a while. The government stepped in and ordered any remaining airport staff to clean the runway, so to take the American tourists back to the United States and Mexicans into the interior where there was power. And after days of marching, because the roads were destroyed, soldiers arrived to Los Cabos and established martial law for a while, protecting the perimeter of large shopping centers. Power returned when they attached a generator to the transformers and slowly reconnecting the different sections of the city. Because of these developments, order resumed in the city overall. From there on, it was just a cleaning and rebuilding effort before all facets of society could resume normally. From my story, 2 important lessons can be learned. The best guarantee of your safety and security is by surrounding yourself with allies. Develop your ties and bonds with your neighbors, and when desperate times come, they may be willing to help you. My mother and father were in good terms with the neighbors behind our house, so they gave us exclusive access to their portable generator at times. Order can return, but only if the larger community had access to desperately needed resources. The Mexican government responded almost immediately after the disaster. Had Los Cabos been left to its own devices for over a week or 2 instead of just 3 days, the city would have likely fallen into chaos and complete lawlessness. So you must know that when SHTF, if your local government and public services will respond quickly and effectively enough within the first few days before true disaster, disorder and anarchy sets in. If that's not the case, you be prepared for the absolute worst and decide to either hunker in or bug out. That was a really interesting story, and I wanted to read that because Um, while order was restored within a few days, it's really interesting to hear the lessons that were learned, which is the big one that I constantly talk about on this channel: having allies. If you have allies, your neighbors and everything, people always fight with me about having allies. This wasn't, hey, I'm a prepper and I'm going to, be a prepper. Let's all be a prepper. No, this was just an ally. Hey, let's all work together for the common good, right? I have always said that your neighbors, friends, whoever, the people in your closest vicinity are your allies. Get to know them. And this is important for apartments as well, even though it can be a little more challenging in apartments. I get it. Anyway, that's what I wanted to read for you here on Reddit. I would love to hear any stories from you about real survival scenarios. Put them down in the comments, and please like and subscribe. If you liked this video, let me know, and I can definitely read more from either the comments you guys leave or more from Reddit. Thank you all so much for watching Conquer Tomorrow by Preparing today. I'll talk to you all later. Bye-bye.